In a country with an unwritten constitution like the United Kingdom, the political conventions play a much greater role than in countries with written constitutions. For instance, in the United Kingdom, legally the Queen can appoint anyone she chooses to be the Prime Minister. But by convention, she must appoint as a Prime Minister the person who commands the majority in the House of Commons. And you can see that this is a significant constitutional rule, which means that the very democratic basis of the United Kingdom's government is based on a convention, not on a law. Another difference is that in the absence of a written constitution, there must be someone or some institution holding the supreme authority. And in the United Kingdom, it is the Parliament holding that supreme authority, which can make or unmake any law without any legal restrictions. But you should be careful that absence of legal restrictions does not mean absence of any restrictions at all. Of course, there are political restrictions because the making of unjust or unpopular laws may cost the government the next election. This is because in most cases the government drafts and initiates legislation in the parliament. Now I will discuss about various types or classes of constitutions. A classification of constitution has been done in the past, but not in a way to understood the modern scenarios, because it is not possible to foresee everything. Despite that, I will discuss Aristotle's classification from the past because it bears some significance. One unique feature of Aristotle's classification is that he concluded that all states went through a cycle of revolutions. A state began with the rule of one man who, from the political aspect, was the supremely virtuous and authoritative one. This was the monarchy or royalty. But after a time, such a virtuous man could no longer be produced or found. Yet the rule of one man remained, and his power was maintained by force rather than virtue. This type of government Aristotle called the tyranny or despotism. But the tyrant would one day meet the opposition of a body of upright men who would overthrow him and rule in his state. This was aristocracy. But the spirit of the aristocracy would after a time begin to degenerate, and though the rule of the few would continue, it would continue by the use of force or corruption instead of political virtue. This was oligarchy. Finally, this hateful rule of oligarchy causes a popular uprising, and the oligarchy is replaced by the rule of many. This was democracy. In Aristotle's view, democracy so easily becomes license of anarchy that he, like Plato, sees it as degenerate by nature. The rule of the many cannot help being the rule of the mob, which is the very negation of rule. Out of the darkness, then again arises the supremely virtuous man, some Caesar, who alone can restore order and reason. The cycle is completed and begins all over again. Aristotle argued that constitution is the basis of the safety of the state, and since the purpose of all the citizens of a state must be the safety of the state, any action, whether by the government or by the non-governmental actors, violating the constitution should not be tolerated. This argument still has a greater force. Nevertheless, we have to abandon Aristotle's classification of constitution since it is quite inapplicable to modern political conditions. For example, it is no longer useful to use the term monarchy to describe a modern state or country because it tells us nothing distinctive about it. Now, monarchy can have various forms. For example, the monarch of the United Kingdom and the monarch of Saudi Arabia, though both are monarchs, they have little similarities between them apart from the name. Again, the term democracy applies to so many modern states with distinctive characters and experience that we need more than that simple classification of Aristotle. Further, Aristotle's view about democracy as an evil has not proved correct, as the democracy in its modern, refined, and complicated form has stood the test of time.